It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Kohl.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Kohl. In the studio with me once again is Jen Corbin. She's the director for Anne Arundel County Crisis Response. Jen, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
The topic is suicide prevention, and it's a topic we've talked about many times before. I did the series 2 years ago, and it's become, it's an ongoing issue and a topic that needs discussion.
I agree. Yeah, and I think it's something that just can't happen once.
First, because this has been recent in the news in recent history, we've had what could be, and there's no way to prove it, cases of suicide contagion or copycat suicides. And I'm talking about 2 deaths by suicide of survivors of the mass shootings at Marjory, Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. And immediately after those 2 suicides, there was an apparent suicide of a dad whose child was killed in the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. There are people that care about you. If you're listening, we care about you. There is help available for you, and there are people that are concerned about you, and there's also help for people that are concerned for others at risk, yes?
Yes.
We know that post-traumatic stress and or survivor's guilt following horrific incidents can last
forever. I mean, it's something, the piece is that we can't think that it's a treat and it's fixed. It's something that's ongoing. It might be that for a while you're doing well and then you have to touch back with some therapy and talk things out. There are triggers that occur that have to sometimes be addressed when people are struggling with the aftermath piece.
And the reason this is important, unfortunately, in our community, because of June 28th, 2018, I'm concerned about what's being done on an ongoing basis, or what was done day of or in the weeks following, to help the survivors of the mass shooting at the Capitol and their family members. Mm-hmm. What was done?
So there's been a lot of follow-up. We still continue to check in with people. For us as crisis response, if I'm talking from the crisis response perspective, is our work actually is during that incident, but also our goal is to continue to check in to make sure people are linked and connected. One of the big things is kind of people think that after so many months out, people are okay, and that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes,
and that's normal for those people.
100, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because one of my sayings that I always say to people when I'm checking in is, it's okay to not be okay. But we get into that realm of, well, it's 3 months out, it's 6 months out, it's a year out. I should be moving past this. I should be at a different point. But there are going to be what we call kind of ups and downs, peaks and valleys, where there's going to be moments where it's a struggle that day, and then the next day is okay. But giving people the tools to get through that and to know that they can reach out. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by reach out is we try to kind of help people identify people that are supports, whether that's therapists, whether that's friends, whether that's colleagues, but the ability to kind of continue to talk that today's a rough day and then tomorrow might be okay. But we need to understand that that's a continuous process, that life after that day is really different.
It's never going to be the same.
It's never going to be the same.
But it doesn't mean that there can't be a lot of brightness and a great future.
100%. I mean, what I tell people is you're changed forever, but that doesn't mean that it's not a different future or a different path for you to go down, and to look at the bright pieces of that is a lot of people find ways to help others or to work together. And so that's one of the pieces that we kind of talk about is you're going to be changed, but that can also be something that you can take to, one, help yourself and help others.
On June 28th in the evening and on June 29th, you all were available to the Capitol families.
Yes.
Families too?
Yes.
Family members too?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't just so we're not just there on scene. A lot of our stuff is done behind the scenes, checking in with people. And not me, but we have teams. And so we assign teams to different family members, to different people with the newspaper. So it's a large group of us that are working on this situation.
How many?
People that were probably working on the Capitol Gazette at one point, probably 20. Between our CIT officers, our clinicians, and our hospital people that, we have people everywhere in crisis response. So it was a lot of different departments kind of helping out.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm in the studio with Jen Corbin. She's the director of Anne Arundel County Crisis Response. The topic is suicide prevention. We care about you. There is help available for you. There's also help available for the people that care about other people. I don't think people understand that often enough.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we need to talk about is the people who are helping others who also need help. One of the things that I think we don't talk about a lot and should be concerned about on, for example, the mass shooting is the first responders that day. Mm-hmm. Who's helping them, you know? And so I think the note needs to be that it spans across a large group of people, that after a massive event like that there are tons of people touched, tons of people who need to be followed up with. And we can't forget our first responders.
And some of these first responders knew these victims.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's especially horrific on so many levels. Mm-hmm. So going back to what we had previously discussed on my series 2 years ago is the topic of adolescent suicides, and specifically in Severna Park, which has seen far too many of them. Yes?
Yes, I agree.
And we've seen another one. The community is in mourning again, and people turned to me and said, why does this keep happening? And what I found was interesting at a meeting in Severna Park, Nancy Lincoln Reynolds, who is a licensed clinical manager and family therapist at Woods Counseling and Care Center, which is attached to Woods Memorial Presbyterian Church, which is in the midst of this crisis in Severna Park, said the difference with Severna Park, you know, there was a study done in Severna Park, that we know that there was a study done in Severna Park that said Severna Park has a problem, and it's a community problem. There's not one person. The parents can't be blamed for it. The schools can't be blamed for it. The athletic leagues can't be blamed for it. It's the entire community. Mm-hmm. But she said what made Severna Park different from the other communities that have been studied is its ability to ask for help and seek help, because in an affluent community like Severna Park, seeking help might be considered a weakness. Is that?
Yeah, I agree actually 100% with her. I think the uniqueness of that community, and really could look at a couple of communities that are very similar to Severna Park, is the fact that it's a small knit, close community, and there is that piece of, if I reach out for help, does that make me weaker than my neighbor? And that's where the problem starts. Why is reaching out for help a weakness? I think we need to stop looking at that and take that stigma away. And easier said than done, right? But for me, it's reaching out for help is actually a strength.
I think 100%.
I don't get why we are putting this as a weakness when you need help. People who don't get help, to me, that is my biggest concern.
And not getting, like, these are the adults making the decisions, but not getting help for a child.
Right.
Like, how could you, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that we get so stuck in routine and in scheduling, and this is going to impact their academic performance, or this is going to look bad on this or that. Is where we need to start. And I know I love what they're doing in Severna Park, what Nancy Lincoln Reynolds is doing with Parenting for a Different World, that group, talking about parenting, talking about that piece. But that's one of three pieces of the puzzle that need to kind of change.
And the other two?
Community. So parenting, community, and the schools. I think everybody needs to take a part. I feel like right now I've attended a lot of meetings just about the community in general, and everybody wants to place blame on others instead of how do we all work together.
And let's talk about the schools, because at that meeting we heard from, you and I heard from parents that were discussing too much homework, not enough sleep, too many AP courses, and schools that are pushing and parents that are pushing. But we're going to talk about the school part of this. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Kohl. In the studio with me is Jen Corbin, the director for Anne Arundel County Crisis Response. Suicide prevention and suicide awareness in Severna Park, adolescent suicide awareness in Severna Park. One of the components is the schools. You have been a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, I've been frustrated with two parts. The need to make sure that we're incorporating the right things in the school, but also the second part is placing too much blame on the school. I think that it's easy to place blame and not looking at what the school is supposed to be doing. School is supposed to be educating our children. Part of it is they need to make sure they keep them safe and that they're taken care of. But when we talk about someone being suicidal or having feelings of depression, anxiety, that's for a mental health professional to take care of. And I think we keep saying school counselors, school counselors. School counselors' job is to guide them through the academic performance and get them through school safely. But when we're talking about mental health, they need to be in therapy. They need to be connected to someone who can guide them through that piece of the puzzle. And I don't think that we can put that blame on the schools.
Mm-hmm. As far as the too much homework, as far as the too many AP courses, as far as the schools insisting on kids taking courses that they maybe shouldn't be taking. Mm-hmm. You yourself have been through this, and I myself have been through this. What I did was say, no, my kid won't be taking the AP courses. And you said?
Yes, I said the same thing. I said, even in middle school, there was a lot of middle school parents at that meeting talking about kids taking high school classes in middle school. At what point do we make it the parents' responsibility also? Look, we can't change the school curriculum, because if we did the standards for them, then we'd start hearing from parents, well, my kid can't get into college because we changed it to make it easier for everyone. And now we're behind such and such state, county. Now my kid didn't get into the college they want. So that's where I started talking about needs. Some of that needs to be held with the parents. Mm-hmm. And the parents, if it's not the right fit for your child, you need to go in and make that parental decision. And I do feel like the school would respect that. The problem is keeping up with the Joneses, right? That saying of, I need to make sure my kid is in this class because so-and-so's kid is in this class. But every child is different. And what we're doing is we're putting every child in a category instead of looking at each child individually and what is their stress level, what can they handle, and how can we develop kids who are resilient and have good protective factors to make it through? Because I say this all the time, a lot of parents think getting them through high school is enough. We're not preparing them for college either. And we're seeing a lot of young individuals coming back from college not making it and not returning to college with mental health. So it's not just about getting the kids through high school. We need to develop kids who can have a strong self-esteem and feel like they have that resilience to make it for the next stage of their life, which for a lot of them is going to be college. And
it was interesting, the Parenting for a Different World meeting that we were both at started with a TED Talk about that quest by parents to get their kids into the colleges and the best colleges with the perfect GPA and the even better than the perfect GPA now, which, I mean, it's all insane.
Yeah, and it's the how many languages you have to take to get into this type of college. I think what we need to do is just reframe how we say things. I think that they come across like, you must do this must be done, and start kind of maybe wording it for parents to hear, well, these are your options. And that just changes the whole mood of the selection, who's going to do it, and what's right for a child. But when you hear you must do this, or this is what you need if you want to go here, and have we asked the kids? I just had this conversation with in another interview. One of the things that's bothered me, and I've been to every high school and middle school, and I've spoke to a lot of kids, and I spoke to a lot of Severna Park kids over the last month or so. And what the kids are saying to me is, nobody's listening to what I want. It's what's best for me, but nobody's asking me what I think is best for me. Right. And so I think we need to slow down, take a breath, and just kind of look at what's best for each individual child or adolescent and say, have we ever just said, what do you want?
It's interesting. I came out of that meeting and I called my daughter, 17-year-old daughter, who was taking the SATs. And I said, I know you're taking the SATs soon, and I really don't care how you do on the SATs. And she said, really? And I said, I just don't care how you do on the SATs. And her response to me, that means a lot. When have you heard a 17-year-old kid say to their parent, that means a lot? It's not something they say often, like that it was an immediate... Yeah,
it's the same thing when, I talk to a couple of kids who talk about the pressure of getting their homework done at night, especially these AP courses where they're studying until 12, 1 in the morning. You got to remember, they went to school for 8 hours, probably had an extracurricular activity, eat, homework. When do they get to be a kid? When do they learn to go out and ride a bike and just take a walk, enjoy some music, relax? And so one of the things the kid said, I just wish one time someone would say, it's okay to take a break. But we're not telling them that, so they're not. And then that kind of gets them lost in that shuffle of always being in constant schedule mode. And so I think one of the things we have to tell kids is also, just like I said earlier, it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to say, I need help.
And speaking of the Severna Park dynamic here, something you also said at that meeting was, and it didn't click until I heard this, this starts earlier than high school. Mm-hmm. This starts in lower school. It starts in middle school. And with Severna Park, it's one middle school.
Yeah, so it's the feeding in. So if you're struggling in middle school, you're feeding in with that same group into high school. So we need to be addressing issues that are seen earlier. And I am working with a lot of middle schools. I'm not just talking about Severna Park, but I'm working with a lot of middle schools on if you're identifying someone possibly having mental health or not adjusting well, we need to be reaching out and get them connected to resources earlier. There's a big success rate if you can address that mental health early for them to be kind of successful, so to speak, in that transition from 8th to 9th grade. The other thing I think we're missing, which I know I said at Parenting for Different Worlds, we're forgetting our 5th graders. We're forgetting our 5th graders that are going into middle school. Middle school is a very stressful time, a lot of changes, and so we need to make sure that we're also looking at how our 5th graders are transitioning into middle school.
And, also of note, the Anne Arundel County recently released its Community Health Needs Assessment, the 2019 version, in that it says, as of 2016, the Anne Arundel County youth suicide rate was 7.8 per 100,000. That's an increase compared to 5.3 per 100,000 in 2012. It's a big increase.
It's a huge increase.
So parents, if you're listening, parents of elementary schoolers, middle schoolers, and of course high schoolers, take this seriously. It's not just about the high schoolers. It's about the child growing up.
And know there's help. I think that what I'm hearing across the board, not just regarding anything that's happening with suicide, but I do these You're Not Alone talks at different high schools for middle school and high school parents. And all the parents always tell me is, how come I don't know about the resources? So I'm trying to come up with some ideas, working with the school system to try to come up with better ways to make sure parents know where the help is. That's a key, too. We need to make sure the parents know how to access help.
Anne Arundel County Crisis Response on the internet they can go to,
yes.
Right? Call 911 for immediate assistance in any emergency. National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. Crisis line, text, it's free, 24/7 for those in crisis. Text 741-741 from anywhere in the U.S. to text with a trained crisis counselor. And Anne Arundel County's crisis warm line, 410-768-5522, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
This is Donna Kohl on the 1430 Connection. We'll see you next week.